There we go.
There we go.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Great to have you here on this beautiful day. I can't believe you're inside watching this, but thank you for doing that. It's encouraging to me. There are so many of you out there who are interested in learning how to take better care of your Japanese maples. And I can't recommend highly enough that you take note of how to contact the Master Gardener organization. Their help desk and the volunteers who help staff the desk are really a great source of free information for all sorts of gardening questions. So I encourage you to reach out to them whenever you have a very specific question, because today I won't be able to answer real specific questions, but I'm going to focus mostly on pruning, obviously. But Master Gardeners offers a lot of classes, which are now solely on Zoom. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to return to our local locations. And we also staff farmers markets in the area and have for many years put on a beautiful display at the Marin County Fair in July, which unfortunately won't happen this year, but we hope for following July. Our website has just been updated. It has an incredible amount of horticultural information on pruning and on fire smart landscaping. And if you find that you are interested in becoming a volunteer Master Gardener, on the website, you'll find out how to apply for the training program, which is a really incredible program. So make note of the contact information here. I'll also show it at the very end if you missed it. I completed the 2-month training program in 2009 and continued to be a volunteer educator with Master Gardeners. In combination with being a professional garden manager, I focus on plant care and have done continuing studies since 2009 in horticulture and pruning. In 2011, I added that specialty after completing the 2-year Pruning Guild training program and have continued my studies with various aesthetic pruners from the Bay Area. So in the approximately 15 minutes of our talk today, I'll cover the most important pruning points that you need to know, but I won't be able to go into all of the scientific, whys and hows of why I might be making certain, giving you certain guidelines. If you're really liking to know the hows and the whys, I would really suggest you join Master Gardeners, because you will really get all the research-based information you need through that training program. And no doubt that even after sharing my best pruning guidance, you may come across pruning situations that I haven't addressed or don't appear to have an easy answer. In those cases, and in cases where your tree is older, and especially is older and has never been pruned, I strongly advise that you hire a very experienced pruner, ideally one who specializes in Japanese maples. The hourly charge may seem high, but he or she will be able to accomplish much more quickly and correctly the pruning that a less expensive person might offer you. And if you're still hesitant to start pruning yourself after today, you can always hire that person and watch them prune and learn how to be a better pruner just by observation. Unfortunately, I won't have time to discuss how to select a Japanese maple or how to care for it, plant it, address soil or disease issues. All of these things are really important. But again, I refer you to the Master Gardener website And if you need more personalized answers, I would have you contact the help desk. You can call them or email them, and someone should get back to you within a short amount of time. They're volunteers, so but they do their best to give you the best answers that are available. So my focus today is mostly on spring pruning and not dormant season pruning. And the differences I will explain. One major thing you have to be aware of is that the health of your tree really guides what you do as far as pruning. And proper watering is can have a major impact on the health of your tree. This tree is obviously a very healthy tree. This was a client of mine. Yeah, this tree needed a lot of work. Anyway, so the first step in deciding if you should even be pruning your tree, or at least how much you can safely remove, there are three conditions that affect the tree's health. One is its location, the soil condition, and your watering practices. So regarding location, master gardeners have a long time saying, put the right plant in the right place. And for Japanese maples, that means ideally they are not planted in lawns. And for full sun locations, the red leaf varieties are said to be the safest bet, though I have seen, as you can see in this picture, some green leaf varieties that do just fine in full sun. In their native growing areas, Japanese maples are found located under taller trees. And in Asia, they get about 3 times the amount of rainfall that we normally get in Marin. So another factor is that windy locations are not a good spot for them. And I'll go into more detail about that in a minute. When they're planted in lawns, because you may see this quite a bit, but the issue here is that lawns are only watered for about 8 to 10 minutes and frequently during a week. And now, of course, with our Marin Water District drought irrigation guidelines, we're going to be asked to water even less. But Japanese maples need deep watering, and once a week is the guideline, general guideline. And by deep watering, we mean that a tree that has like about a 5-foot canopy would need about 30 gallons of water each watering session. So that's a lot of water. They can get by on less, but that's the ideal. A slight adjustment to that guidance is that a tree on a slope, you would start and stop watering like in intervals, so that the water doesn't just run down your slope. That's the one way, and you apply the water very, very slowly. So it could take a couple of hours to water a tree correctly on a slope. And the water needs to be applied at the drip line, which I'll get to in a minute what that is, but that is really critical. And then loamy soil is the ideal soil condition, but I've seen, certainly many Japanese maples that grow just fine in our clay soil. Sandy soil would need more frequent water, but that's another whole other topic. Okay, so impacts on tree health. In the case of a lawn-located tree, and I know some of you must have them, you can put a soaker hose around the tree once a week. Minimum, I'd say once a month in the drought, or some other method to water it deeply. But if it doesn't get that kind of water, you really could be stunting its growth and therefore its health. So do be aware of that. This slide shows probably mostly wind damage. Anyway, getting back to the water issue, during this really low rainfall year, I highly recommend using a soil coring device, which I'll show you in a few minutes, which it pulls out a core of soil, and you can actually physically look at and feel the moisture of the soil farther down than you can just by digging with a hand tool. And if you haven't been monitoring your water application to your tree, now is really a critical time to make up for that. They really need some water right now. They have not gotten the water they needed from rainfall this winter. So I highly recommend going out and giving them a good dose of water. You know, these are expensive plants and they grow slowly. So you don't want to have Japanese maples be the plants that you lose in your garden this year due to drought. It would take a long time to replace them as far as their height, and you know, a replacement would take far too long to grow back to what you lost through this drought. So check your soil moisture about 16 to 18 inches down, again at the drip line. Again, I'll show you a slide about that in a minute. The core device that I've mentioned, they're not easily found. You can find them online. They're not a tool that's talked about a lot, but I have found it extremely helpful. It really makes your soil moisture testing more precise. Major signs of inadequate watering would be to look for whole sections of your tree that has crisp leaves, especially at the top parts of the branches, the uppermost parts of the branches. If you're seeing dead leaves or a lack of leaves compared to the rest of the tree, that definitely means you're not applying enough water at each watering session. There's just not enough pressure to push the water from the roots up to the top of the tree. That's the easy visual I can give you about that. Wind can dry out a tree just as much as hot weather. We can have a cool day, but if it's windy, that wind can dry out your tree just as much as a hot day. So pay attention to windy locations. You know, it's unfortunate if your tree's in a windy spot, but you know, it's not going to probably kill your tree, but you're going to have to make up for the lack of water there. If you do suspect wind damage, well, I'll backtrack on that. If you live, what I was going to say is, if you live on a ridge, you know, and if you are thinking about planting a maple, but you're unsure of where you could plant it because of the wind condition, you know, just make sure it's planted where it's protected by either other tall shrubs, a building, or a fence that's on the south or west side. We do get winds from the north, but the more prevailing winds are from the south and the west. So now I will get to the all-important drip line. I can't emphasize this enough. Being a garden manager, I go into a lot of people's gardens and they have, quote, professional gardeners. And I find the irrigation lines or sprayers spraying up against a trunk. But I find the drip line has been left where at the root ball when the plant was first planted and never been moved out. So as you can see from this diagram, and I really encourage you to study this, the drip line is where you start watering your plant. And for some plants, I've had to dig out a citrus tree and was shocked at how far out the roots go beyond the drip line. It was like 10 feet beyond the drip line. So I don't know what it is for each plant, but to be on the safe side, you start watering at the drip line. You don't water at the trunk. That actually is detrimental to your plant. And this is true for all plants, not just Japanese maples. You know, it's wasting your water, it's wasting your money, it's wasting our communal source of water by not watering correctly. So this is a big peeve of mine that more people don't know about this. And so spread the word. So the feeder roots, which are at the drip line and out, are where the water is taken up. The nutrients are taken up. So that means when you fertilize there as well. You don't just throw fertilizer granules at the trunk. That's not doing your plant any good. So another factor in the health of your tree is, another factor, excuse me, in knowing how much to prune off of your tree is age related. So as you can see from this slide, the bark has a mottled look to it. Well, that denotes that it's a mature tree. You can even have this on trees that are fairly short, but that means they've been in the ground, you know, at least 15, maybe 25 years. And the reason that age is an important thing to know about your tree, Japanese maples that is that the younger trees respond better to pruning, meaning that they seal the pruning wound that you make when you cut it better compared to a tree that is, say, 25 years old, which is considered a mature Japanese maple. So with older trees, you want to make far fewer pruning wounds on the tree because they don't seal well, or it takes a long time for them to seal. I would say that one argument for pruning your younger trees early in their life, meaning like ages 4, and can be done like, say, through ages 8 or 10, is for this reason, that way you won't have to prune an older tree. One exception would be if it's been damaged by wind, you know, a branch has been torn off or partially torn off. The goal with those kind of wounds is you want to make it a smooth wound on the tree. So it is best to go in and cut that limb off and make a smooth wound, meaning without edges, ragged edges. And the reason for that is that there's a structure on the tree branches and trunk where they join. It's called a branch collar, and I'll go over that in a minute. But anyway, that's one. The collar has to physically seal over. It's like, you know, anyway, if you don't want a rough edge where it has to seal over, that would prevent it from healing well. In regards to thinking about just pruning, your approach needs to be really usually that it's going to be a several-year project, especially if your tree hasn't been pruned prior to now. And so it's going to take a lot of patience and maybe holding back. Some people are aggressive pruners and some are conservative pruners, but really with Japanese maples, you have, I'll give you guidelines in a minute about how much you can remove, but you'll see that you can't just go in once and prune your tree and say, okay, that's it for the life of the tree. It won't work as well that way with maples. And another reason to start pruning your tree when it's young is because you can remove more of the tree. You can make more of an impact on its structure when it's young. So that's another reason why pruning when it's younger is better. And sometimes these trees grow perfectly fine on their own, especially if they're in the best location, meaning under larger trees. They will grow as you can see at this slide on the left. This one's a fairly thinly growing tree. It really needs very little done to it. And you can study these and there's no absolutes with pruning a maple. I mean, that's the beauty of them. You can put them into almost any kind of shape that you want. For me, the one on the left, I would probably remove those top two branches that are going above the roof line. But some people might say, oh, just remove the one on the right so that it has more of a less symmetrical shape to it. It's leaning a little bit, toward the left a little. The growth pattern's sort of going toward the left. But that's, that's what's great about these trees. You can shape them to your own desire. The one on the right, I'll mention this now, though I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I would say that some of the leaf coverage and branchlet cover at the lower portion of the multi-trunks you see there were removed and probably shouldn't have been. It seems to be a little top heavy to me. But that's my impression of that. So I mentioned deadwooding, and deadwooding can be done any time of year. It's not counted in the limits I'll give you in a minute about how much wood to remove. So you can do that any time of year on any age of tree. It can be a young tree, old tree, but it can make a huge difference in the way your tree looks. So start with deadwooding. It's easy. Amateurs can do it. And you don't even actually usually have to have your pruning pruners with you. You can actually, it's considered acceptable to snap off anything that's dead. Sometimes it isn't clear if a branch is dead, and there is a way to test for that, which is to use the blade of your pruners and scrape off a small section longitudinally along the branch, just an inch or so, and see if you see green pulp. Or you can cut off a smaller branch. I'd say a smaller branch, and see if there's green pulp. Green pulp is live tissue. If it's brown, it's dead. So you can snap off the dead part right at that point. What else can I tell you about that? Oh, one other thing about branches appearing to be dead. Just because leaves are crisp and brown, it doesn't mean the branch is dead. So this is a good place where to do the scraping test, or the cutting, just a tiny bit of cutting, to see if the branch is dead. Very rarely are you, well, I shouldn't say that. It's not often that browned leaves are a sign of an entire branch being dead. So don't jump to conclusions. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to talk about limits. These are guidelines to help you feel more confident in your pruning. I'm talking about, again, live wood removal. When you're cutting off the dead material, you don't count that in these limits. For healthy trees, and one that is, say, 15 to 25 years of age, you can remove up to about 25%. Again, these are just general guidelines, but you wouldn't want to be removing 50%. That would be way too much. And this is per pruning session. And most amateur pruners are going to probably only prune once a year at the most. So professionals might prune up to 3 times a year on a Japanese maple, especially if it's a prized focal point tree. But our guidelines are 25% for a tree that's up to 25 years old. And again, you would look at the bark. If it's mottled, that means it's probably about 25 years. So that's about when you start being more conservative. So trees over 25, you want to keep the removal amount to about 15%. And remove less than that if you're a more conservative pruner. And again, some trees may not need much pruning at all. So for water stress trees or trees that just for some reason don't look that healthy, I would say you want to definitely remove less than 15%. And you definitely don't want to prune it very often. It's already a stressed plant, and pruning is a stress on plants. So, it's pretty simple to keep track of how much you've removed. You just look at what you've left on the ground, and it's in comparison to what's, the material, the entire material, the branches and the leaves. I shouldn't say that. It's the branches that you're counting as far as the 20 or 15%. And I will say this year with they're not getting enough rainfall this winter, that to be conservative, you really have to be conservative with your pruning this year, unless there's something really major going on with your tree. You don't want to be making the bigger cuts, and I'll get into that in a minute, what that means. If you have a tree that's been planted less than 5 years, be sure to leave the lower, on the trunk, lower twigs and leaves. Those are all feeding the trunk and enabling the girth to get stronger and thicker. And that's really important, especially if you have a tree in a windy area. You don't want it to blow over. So it's really important to leave those lower structures on the tree for about the first 5 years. And then you can prune it off if they're getting in the way or, interfering with the look you want. So a goal for spring pruning is to really just to create light between the branches, especially the horizontal growing branches. If you're looking to make bigger changes, such as reducing the height or taking off a larger girth limb, that's done in, those kind of cuts are done in the dormant season, which for maples, that starts around January and goes through February. And the way you know when it's probably too late to prune is when they start leafing out. So at that time, you remove branches that have a girth of about 3 to 4 inches or greater. So we're talking pretty big branches. That's something.
Donna, are you changing slides? Because it seems to be stuck on decent structure slide.
I actually was going to leave this for a few.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, but the people have asked that. So I just want to make sure that this.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'm leaving it for now. I know. Thank you for that. I'm glad you're monitoring that. That's good. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so I covered the size of the cuts. Let's see. Okay, so I think I covered that. So January, February is the best time to make your larger cuts. sometimes you'll have just one limb if you really, and I'll get into this, but you really need to study what is causing any issues with your tree, as well as what's the right thing that's really making your tree look great. But for the big cuts you're going to make in January, February, sometimes it's just one branch. And we try to tell people to encourage them, be a little assertive in January, February, and don't make a lot of little cuts, because eventually you're just probably going to end up taking off that limb anyway. So and again, I'm trying to tell you things that, I've taken years to learn, and I'm trying to share this with you in 50 minutes. So be cautious, but again, the January, February is the time to make the bigger cuts. And I'm going to be going into obviously what we're going to be doing right now in April, May timeframe, which is when, as I said, you're looking to create more light in the tree. And I'll explain how to do that. Okay, now we're going to switch. So another factor in how you prune your tree and approach it is its natural form. As you can see, these trees look vastly different than the trees we were just looking at. Those were upright Acer palmatums. These are the weeping form. And what I would say about that is that if you have a weeping form, it's never going to be an upright form. If you try to do that, you will butcher the tree. And if you have an upright form and you really wish, there are ways to prune to make the branches come down a little bit, but you're not going to have this kind of a shape. It's just, it's not advisable. You'll probably be damaging your tree more than you really intended to do. So the trick is, again, to start making your tree when it's younger, making pruning cuts that will give you the kind of shape you want. But again, you cannot take an upright tree and make it into a weeping tree. Let's see. You may have a multi-trunk Japanese maple, or you may have a single trunk Japanese maple. There's so many varieties. There's something like 1,000 cultivars of Acer palmatums. So there's a lot of variability with these trees. Notice how in this the right-hand picture, the tree, I hope you can see it anyway, how the top branches are visible, and you can see a lot of curve in this tree. And also obviously with the one on the left, there's a lot of downward curve. But what I'm talking about is these unusual bends and shapes that the branches may take. And leaving those on is what creates visual interest with maples. So I know a lot of the upright trees have a majority of straight as an arrow branches, and there's not much you can do about that. You're going to have to leave them. But if you can find one or two or more in your trees that start to look like they have an unusual shape, leave them on a few years and see where they go. And it may end up being a real focal point for your tree. One thing with trees is sometimes they're planted too close to a building. Here we get into the plant the right tree in the right place. It's going to be a little difficult to prune those trees, because you're going to be making cuts that are based on them not running into buildings or walkways, obstructing your path. But obviously that's something you're going to have to make a judgment call on how to deal with that issue. Sometimes if the tree is really out of place, the best thing to do is to pull it out. I hate to say that, but I have seen maples that are planted way too close to a house, and it's just a struggle to keep it looking good. And in this day of fire danger, they're not considered highly flammable or fire-prone plants, but it's still not a good idea to have them really close to a house. Let's see. So one way to teach yourself what to look for is to go to public gardens that are well maintained, that have Japanese maples. And we're so fortunate in Marin Art and Garden Center right in Ross has several different shaped maples. Most of them are toward the back end of the property, if you are familiar with Marin Art and Garden Center. They're back by the fountain in that general area. And they've been pruned for years by professional aesthetic pruners, including my fellow Pruning Guild members. And so they are good specimens to study and to get ideas of what you can do with your tree. Let's see. So now I am going to, let me make sure here. Yeah. I'm going to get to the details of pruning, what tools to use, more specific structures I can show you. All right, I'm going to stop share, meaning I'm going to disappear for a minute, and you'll get to study these slides while I do that.
So we can see you, Donna, but the slides did stop sharing. So.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but you're big in the screen again, so now we can see
Okay.
up close. So.
Okay, wait a minute. So I want to do the opposite, and I can't find the control for at the top that says stop video is what I meant to hit.
Yeah, so it should all go back to the bottom now. So on the very bottom, when you hover on the bottom, you'll see the stop video. And then if you want to go back to the share, you can share the slide again so we can see the slide.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm not at that. I don't see the bottom controls.
So, because when the stop share, that would have moved the controls down to the bottom of the screen again.
I know, but they're not popping up.
Uh-oh.
Well, so you're not seeing my slides at all.
No, we're not seeing the slides at all. So if you click on the little zoom icon in your tool, do you see your bar,
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hit escape.
Okay.
Okay, let me try this again. Nope, that's not it either. Okay, I did. So what I did was I turned off stop share.
Instead of stop video, yeah.
Yeah, so what are you, so you're not seeing my.
We're not seeing the slides anymore because you'll need to share the screen again so as to see the slides. So you just need to find the share screen icon.
I cannot find it.
So, and look for the little zoom icon in your
oh, there we are.
Yeah.
I was in the wrong. I got it. I had to go out of. Okay, here we go.
This is what we didn't practice.
Yeah.
There we go. So now turn off your video.
Okay. Well, actually now I don't even have to turn that off now. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. There's always something. Okay. Can you see this?
Now we want, do you want to show the slides or you want to?
Oh, I see. So now I do.
Now you stop the share. And so we'll see you big and see the
Tell I'm new at this. Okay, wait a minute. Now it says select camera.
Oh, here, let me, I'll stop the sharing for you. So, nope, I didn't do that. There we go.
Can you see me now?
Now we can see you in the tool. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So I hope you can see this. These are my hand pruners. These are critical to have good ones that are sharp. I clean these just for you. They're having them clean makes a cleaner cut, and having them sharp makes a cut that doesn't have the ragged edges. So make sure you do that. You can use a little sharpening tool like this. The way you do it is you hold your pruners like this, and I'm going to just generally show you that you hold it at about this degree angle, and you go like that with your pruners. Do that about 10 times, and oil them so that, you know, I see people with a lot of old pruners that have black rust and all sorts of stuff on them. You can use, I use tar remover on mine or goof off. And that helps to really clean them up. And then a pruning saw, not a wood shop saw, is best. These have teeth that are size 240, which I find is a really good size. I love this saw because it has big teeth on this side, which are great for making the bigger cuts. Or harder wood, which Japanese maples wood is not usually that hard. And then this is the smaller teeth that are great for doing the finish of the cut, and actually sometimes the start of the cut as well. So I love this saw. But the tooth size is really what's going to help you with your pruning. So you want bigger teeth for really big cuts, is what I can tell you. I promised to show you, and I don't know if I can show you this very well, but this is the coring tool. Can you see this? I can't see myself, so I don't know if you can see this.
No, it shows up really good. So.
Good. Okay. So what you do is it's used this way. You push down here, put your foot here, and this part is pretty sharp. And what it's hollow inside. And so it cores out a section of soil, and you can see if it's damp or crumbly or whatever. It's really a great tool. I can't recommend it enough during this drought time. I think everybody who has a garden should have one. What I was going to show you is, oh, and also we don't advise using loppers. Because they don't make good clean cuts usually. Even bypass loppers, they'll make a decent cut, but usually you're not close enough. We like you to be close to where you're going to cut so you can see what you're really cutting. So, and if you can't get that close, then use pole pruners, or a ladder is a great idea. Let's see. So let me go. Okay, this is where I get lost. I have to figure out how to get back to sharing screen here. So I'm going to just do this and do this and this. Oops, wait. This and okay. Now, are we back? Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you. And if you hit play, that should make this the slideshow big again. There we go.
All right. Oops, except I just did the reverse of what I want to do. I want to, sorry. Okay. Okay. Can you see this now?
No, we can't see you at all now. So you turned your camera off. So.
Okay. Sorry.
I think because you want to show us the pruning of the branch, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here, let's turn off the, because we're sharing the slides again. There we go. Now we're back to you, and now we can see this branch.
Okay, so when you make cuts, you want to cut at what's called the branch collar. And it's not real easy to see here. Actually, I do have slides about this later. The great thing about maples is they have alternating growth buds. So the buds are where the new growth next year is going to happen, obviously. And they have alternating buds. They'll have, you can see from this branch, they had 2 buds originally that face this way, but they also have buds that face this way. So that gives you a lot of options to direct the future growth of your tree. And that's what pruning is really all about, is directing the future growth of your tree. Besides, you know, shortening it or thinning it out or whatever. This is a great example. This is the upward facing. This is horizontal. And in the spring, the goal is to create light between the branches. So you're going to, if this branch were growing this way, in this time of year, you actually want to remove the downward, some or a lot of the downward facing branches, because that will remove the clutter and create more space between the branches. There'll be another branch below this, obviously. Sorry, this is done this way, but in the days of COVID and Zoom, we can't show you this live out in the field as we would like to do. So that's the goal for this time of year, is to create more light, as I've said. See, this branch has a nice curve to it. See that? That's a really nice branch, even though this branch is dead. I chose it because it doesn't have a lot of leaf clutter, and so you can really see the structure of the branch. Okay, that's that. And I think that's okay. So let me get back to, I'm going to show you my slides again. And again, I'm not quite getting how to do this. Okay. So you're still seeing me?
Yeah, still you. So just look for the little green share screen button.
Okay. Got it. Sorry about the delay here, folks.
There we go.
Okay. So just to give you some pointers on what to look to remove, as I pointed out in this previous slide about the tree with the limbs growing, or the branches growing at the top, around summer, actually not around this time as much, but in summer, you'll start seeing big long whips start growing out from your tree. Those are what you want to cut back, and you cut back again to the origin, which is where they attach on the branch. You don't want to make cuts that are in between the attachment point and the end of the branch. You want to make it at the attachment point. On the right, you'll see crossing branches, branches that are growing in a direction that doesn't flow with the general look of the rest of the tree. Your trees don't have to be perfectly symmetrical. And in fact, for Japanese maples, it adds more interest if they're not completely symmetrical, although some instances you may want that. But and one thing about pruning, a really major thing about pruning is, you know, really study your tree before you start taking your pruners in your hand. Because obviously you can't put branches back that you've cut off. You know, it's going to require, it's like playing chess rather than checkers. You have to think 3 or 4 steps ahead before you start pruning. And sometimes you can't, and sometimes you'll make a mistake and you'll cut something off that you really wish you hadn't. But you might have to move the branches, you know, apart to sort of visualize what will this look like. And I know I'm speaking to the people who maybe haven't pruned before. But you know, move some of the branches away that you're thinking about cutting off, and you'll get a better sense of what the end result will be. And even after you do start pruning, be sure to step back. And again, I think I've said this, it takes a lot of patience to prune correctly. You really want to step back after making a cut. And I step back maybe after 2-3 cuts. It takes a while to prune, to do it right. But if you really just hang on to your patience and look at what you've done, you know, it will really help you, and it'll improve your confidence as far as you know, what you need to do. The goal of aesthetic pruning is to create what's called a coarse to fine structure. And that means, if you can see in the slide, that where the branches attach to the trunk, the girth of those branches is thicker at the attachment than it is at the ends. And so that's coarse to fine on the branch, but it's also coarse to fine on the whole tree. Meaning you want it really light and airy, especially out toward the branch ends. And you do want to prune. There are V-shaped connections with branches that, you know, like the branches connect and create a V. A lot of times there are leaves, you can see them here, they're sort of blocking the structure. You can take those away and it will reveal more of the structure of the tree. And that's what really makes Japanese maples interesting, is being able to see the branch structure. And that's why we look for those curves in the branches, because that again makes it very interesting. Let's see. So I talked about removing downward branches. This is just a diagram to show you that a little bit more. And you can see how it creates more space in the tree. And I mentioned that you make the cuts at where they attach. You can see you don't cut halfway up the branch. That's really not going to give you a coarse to fine structure with pruning your maples. Let's see, branch collar. Okay, this is very important, and it's not real easy to show with the live branches I have here today. So I have this diagram. There's the V juncture I was mentioning, where you can remove twigs and leaves from there. But the branch collar is very important to leave on the tree. And that is because it has chemicals in it that helps it seal the wound better. And that keeps out the pests and diseases that can, you know, affect the health of your tree. This shows, let's see here, I'm going to, anyway, these slides show the difference between a heading cut and a thinning cut, and I haven't gone into that too much because I really just want you to think about removing the smaller branches at their point of attachment. So this bottom slide shows you a comparison to if you made a cut in the middle of the branch. Heading cuts result in a thicker regrowth, and that's not really usually what you want on a maple, unless some branch is broken off and you need to, you know, create more space. So I showed you bud locations, and this is really sort of just a visual to remind you of, you know, how just a few cuts can create more space in your tree. This is more of a horizontal branching tree, which makes it easy. To me, the upright ones are a little bit harder to make graceful, but it can be done. And it just, you know, again, just keep a lot of light between your branches. And I guess that's really all my tips for today. I hope you've enjoyed learning the complexities of pruning a Japanese maple, and you can see why it takes some time to feel confident about pruning them. But you know, stand back and practice your patience, and you know, it's a fun tree to prune. It's a very rewarding tree to prune. And I wish you luck in all of that. And again, I will say that if I haven't addressed your concerns, or if you need more personalized answers to your questions, contact our help desk, or look online. There is, again, a whole section on pruning now. And maybe you're even interested in learning the science behind some of these things, and joining the organization might be of interest to you. So look on the website for information on our training program. And thank you so much.
But, and Donna, did you have some time for some questions? Because we do have
Yes.
a few questions too. So
Sure.
Carolyn asked, she has, these are 3 baby trees that she planted last fall, but they have nearly died of lack of water, but it's coming back, albeit at the bottom part of the plant. I don't want to just cut off the dead part because of the top of the tree. What should she do?
She doesn't want to cut off the what part?
I guess the part that it seems, I guess the top of the tree was, well, it looked like it died, but the bottom part is starting to have growth come back.
Yes, that sounds like a typical case of not enough water being applied because the top part died and the bottom part's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my impression, without having seen the tree. I would just let it be. If it's that, you know, if she doesn't want to replace it, you know, sometimes you have to replace plants, unfortunately, and I know they're expensive, but I would say, especially in this drought year, give it some really good soaking. Don't keep it super moist, soggy all the time. I'm not saying that, but follow the guidelines I gave, and hopefully that was the issue.
Okay, yeah, no, she mentioned that it was lack of water that was doing it. So, so the next question is, someone has, their tree is huge, and is it a good time to prune now?
If you heard all that I said, not really, because of the drought. Especially if the tree hasn't been, you know, if you haven't been watching the irrigation to the tree, and if it's really big, that it sounds like that means you want to reduce it, and that's only done in January and February.
Okay. And then somebody asked, do you have a list of recommended Japanese maple pruning experts?
Master gardeners would prefer that you contact the help desk for that kind of information. So make a note, you can email them, and I do believe they have an extensive list of people. And you can go, well, okay, anyway.
So the next one was, how often do you water 30 gallons, I guess?
Oh, I didn't mention that, did I? Once a week, ideally. I think I did mention that, but ideally once a week. It's really up to you in this drought year. And again, I can't emphasize enough, water only at the drip line. Don't waste your water by watering anywhere else, and make sure it's soaking into the soil. And again, if you use a coring device, say a day or two after you've watered, you'll know how much water to apply.
Okay.
It needs to go down, I should say, it needs to go down at least, say, 16 inches. It should be wet, or moist, I should say.
And then someone's asking, do Japanese maples backbud?
Oh, good question. I should know that off the top of my head. Let's see. Yes, I would say they do.
Okay.
Somebody out there knows better than that. Yeah, I just based on the number of buds that it has, I believe it would. Yes.
What percent of a tree may be pruned if it's less than 15 years old?
Oh, 25%.
Okay.
But, you know, if you're new at this, I would say be cautious, you know, that's a maximum. And the goal isn't to remove 25%. I should make that clear. It's you can remove up to 25%. It's always better to make fewer pruning cuts if you can.
And then someone, I think you explained the core tool when you showed us, but someone asked again to repeat the clean, what products you use to clean off your prunes, your shears, the pruners.
Oh, I just found this by accident. I happen to have tar remover for my car. And so that seems to help, but also just, and I'm not supposed to endorse products by name. So that liquid that takes all sorts of stuff off of, you know, it's adhesive remover, that kind of thing.
So someone is asking, what is the 1/3 rule mentioned in the heading, the thinning cut slide?
Oh, okay. I did not review that very well. When you prune off a branch, let's say you want to prune off this branch. Can you see me?
Yeah, it's really small though, but we can see you.
Okay. Let's say you want to prune off this branch, it's going the wrong direction for your desires. You want to make sure that this branch is, let's see, wait a minute. I'm not saying this right. Right. That this branch is 1/3 the size. Wait, yeah. This branch is 1/3 the size of the one you've removed at minimum. So in other words, maybe a better way to say this is, if you were going to remove this branch, it needs to be 1/3 the size of, this branch can't be less than 1/3 the size of this branch. There's a reason, because the nutrients, this is going to be what's left. And actually this branch is okay. So that's not even a good, okay, here's the better one. Sorry. If you remove this branch, this one's, it's questionable if this branch is 1/3 the size of the branch it's attached to. The nutrients have to keep going through here. And it's likely that this branch will die if it's too small. This might be an even better example that you wouldn't want to take off a big branch like this and leave just this thin girthed twig left. This will end up dying. So it would be better to make your cut farther up the tree where this branch is a little thicker, or even up here. I hope that's a better visual.
Someone's asking, how do you modify watering and pruning recommendations for a potted tree?
Well, containerized plants always take way more water. They're not a great choice for drought times, unfortunately. I know maples do grow in containers fairly well. Again, the nice thing about container plants is that you can use your finger and see if it's wet, you know, pretty deeply. It doesn't have to be wet right the minute you touch the soil. It can be moist farther down, but you know, it depends on where the container is, how much sun, how much heat it gets. But always look at the leaves. I mean, if the leaves are not getting crisp, then, you know, you're giving it enough water. And in these drought times, you know, I would say start pulling back on your water and just see how your plants respond, but keep an eye on them. But, you know, most of us tend to overwater. So I would say, again, I don't want to make too many blanket comments here, because every plant is different. The soil's different, location, but, you know, some plants in containers may need water every day, but often that's because they've been in the container too long and they actually need to be in a bigger container with more soil. So that's sort of my wishy-washy answer for that one.
So someone's asked, do your rules of thumb apply to bonsai, pruning, watering, etc.?
Ooh, I'm not a bonsai expert. We do have somebody in the pruning guild who is. I don't know how to answer that. There's a whole other skill set involved with bonsai. You might.
But they can ask this question at the help desk, right?
Yeah, of course. And you can always look online for, help with that. But yeah, I would start with the help desk.
Okay, and then someone's asked about the visual goal slides, especially for the upright maples. Can you talk through some of the pruning choices made to get from the before and after photos? I don't remember having a before and after photos that you had in your slides.
Oh, yeah, I had one. It might have been up very quickly. Let's see. Let's see here. Well, I used to have one. I guess it disappeared. I did have one on here, before and after. Yeah, unfortunately, in 50 minutes, I don't really have a whole lot of time to teach. I can explain, but teaching, it's a skill. Again, you're really just going to have to look at your own tree and study trees, like I said, in public gardens, Japanese maples in public gardens, and see how thin or full they make them. I mean, that's also a personal choice. Some people like them really, really thinned out, and other people, like in this slide, it's not that thinned out, but it still looks very airy and graceful. So I'm sorry about that. If we were in a garden together, I would definitely show you that, but I don't have a tree to show you that, and it's pretty hard to do with a photo. So that's the best.
Someone's asked, they have a branch that is growing through an open fence. Could I prune it off now? What's the maximum diameter of a branch that I could prune now?
I'd say about 3 inches. And if it's, again, because it's drought year, if it's the neighbor's not complaining or something like that, I would wait till the tree is dormant and after you've given it some good water. But if all that is not the case, then you do have to prune it off. It's about 3 inches. Just make a really clean, non-jagged edge cut, and at the branch collar, leaving the branch collar on the trunk.
Someone's asked about transplanting out a mature 25-year-old maple tree to another location to replant. What do you recommend?
Not recommended. Yeah, you're most likely gonna kill it. You'd have to make a cut around a root ball so huge. As you can see from that drip line diagram, the roots go way out beyond the drip line, and if you cut off too many of those, the tree's probably not going to make it. I mean, if it's you don't care, let's just try it kind of thing, sure, go for it. But again, I wouldn't do it now. When it's dormant would be the time, and the soil will hopefully be moist then where you're transplanting it to. But yeah, don't do it now.
So someone just asked about the slides, but we are recording this, so you can go back later on and rewatch the recording to see the
That's
slides.
the great thing about this. Yeah.
So
my fumbles and no, yeah, I encourage that.
And then before everybody goes, I forgot to run the poll again. So so if you're a master gardener, we take a poll for the master gardener. So if you are a master gardener joining us today, please put if you are, so we can give the count to the UC Marin Master Gardeners. Also this afternoon, later today, there'll be an email with the link to the recording, as well as a Master Gardener survey, and then links to the Master Gardeners website as well. So keep an eye out on your email for that. And again, thank you all for joining us today. And before you go, just say yes or no if you're a UC Master Gardener. So, and thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Donna, again for sharing this with us.
Thank you, Frank.
This has
You've
been
great.
really
Yeah.
a great presentation, and I always learn so much from gardeners. So this is great.
It's been great working with you too. And thank you for all our sponsors, as it were. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so we're good. So everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.